Funny thing about people. You never really know which one's supposed to stay until you try to leave them. Life doesn't send you a sign with flashing lights or some grand announcement saying, "This one matters." No, it's quieter than that. It's the one who annoys you but still shows up. The one who doesn't say much, but you feel them in the room. The one who makes you question why you care so much. Why you can't just walk away like you did with everyone else. You tell yourself they're just another person passing through. But deep down, something keeps pulling you back. Every time you try to move on, life drags you right back to them, like a loop you can't escape. Funny thing about life, sometimes the people you meet aren't just people. They're messages, wrapped in skin, breathing, talking, laughing, sometimes annoying, but messages nonetheless. You think you just stumbled across them. Oh no, they were placed. Like a puzzle piece that doesn't look like it fits, until you twist it a little and realize it was meant to be there all along. Some people aren't distractions. They're divine assignments in disguise. And you've probably mistaken one for the other. You see, it's easy to call someone a distraction when they slow you down, make you think, make you question your comfort, because comfort is so warm, so safe. But destiny doesn't grow there. No, destiny grows in discomfort. It grows when someone enters your world and flips your routine upside down. You fight it, call it a test, maybe even a curse. But that person, that disturbance, might be the one sent to wake you up, because you were getting sleepy, weren't you? Numb, routine, predictable. Then they showed up, and suddenly, your emotions started breathing again. Maybe they push you too hard, or maybe they see through your act. The mask you wear to convince the world you've got everything figured out. They don't buy it. They look at you and see something more, something raw. It's irritating, isn't it? To be seen. But that irritation, that's the sound of growth scraping against your pride. It's the friction that sharpens the blade. You can't become who you're meant to be without friction. Smooth surfaces don't cut anything, and yet you run. You call it protecting your peace, when really you're running from purpose. Because sometimes purpose comes dressed as chaos. It walks in, rearranges everything you thought was permanent, and demands you to rise. You wanted peace. You got purpose instead. You wanted silence. You got a voice telling you to move. That person isn't here to make your life easy. They're here to make your life mean something. They might not look like an angel. In fact, they might look like the very thing you swore to avoid. They might annoy you, challenge you, confuse you. But inside that mess is a lesson, a divine setup wearing human clothes. Maybe they're the one who teaches you patience when you've got none left, or forgiveness when your heart's too cold for it. Or maybe, just maybe, they remind you that you still care, even when you tried so hard not to. Because you did try to stop caring, didn't you? But they made it impossible. It's funny how life uses people like mirrors. You see them, but really, you're seeing yourself. The parts you like to hide, the ones you don't want to face, they reflect them right back at you. That's not coincidence. That's alignment. The universe has a dark sense of humor, doesn't it? It brings someone who irritates your wounds just enough to make you finally clean them. You call them a distraction, but maybe they're the one pulling you back to the path you abandoned. You say they waste your time, but maybe they're saving your soul. Because sometimes the mission doesn't look like success. It looks like someone who forces you to confront yourself. You want to get away from them, but even when you do, they echo in your mind. That's not obsession. That's instruction. Maybe you were sent to them too. Ever think of that? Maybe you're their assignment. Maybe they're lost, and you're the one meant to light the way. But to do that, you have to stay long enough to see why. That's the hard part, isn't it? Staying. Because staying means feeling. It means breaking your own walls, letting something real touch you again. It means risking the heart you swore you'd keep locked away. But when someone's a divine assignment, you can't ignore it forever. The world will keep bringing them back into your story, in whispers, in dreams, in strange coincidences that feel a little too intentional. Because the truth is, you can't outrun a mission that was written with your name on it. You can avoid it, distract yourself, fill your life with noise. But deep down, there's something about that person that won't let you go. And maybe it's not meant to. You ever notice how the right person always shows up at the wrong time? How life plays this little trick, throws someone into your story when you're least ready for them. You're focused, working, healing, minding your own business, and then boom, there they are, smiling, laughing, breathing chaos into your calm. You tell yourself it's not the right time, not the right situation, maybe not even the right person. But something deeper whispers, what if it is? What if this timing you hate so much is actually the timing you needed most? Life has this way of tearing apart your plans to build something better out of the wreckage. You think it's bad timing, but maybe it's divine precision. Maybe that person didn't come too early or too late. They came exactly when your heart needed the shake. Up. When you were getting too used to being numb. When you started believing that solitude was strength and connection was weakness. And then they arrive, unannounced, unapologetic, and everything you thought you had under control starts to tremble. You resist, of course. You always do. Because you've been hurt before, right? You've learned to build walls high enough to keep the pain out. But this person, they climb them without even trying. They find the cracks. They see the version of you thought you buried. And you hate that. You hate how easy it is for them to see through your act. How one conversation with them feels more honest than 100 with anyone else. You don't want to care, but you do. You don't want to feel, but you can't help it. The world will tell you it's just coincidence, chemistry, timing. But deep down, you feel it. This connection isn't ordinary. It's not something you can explain or replace. It's like the universe dropped a reminder right in front of you, saying, hey, you're still alive. Because that's what they do. They make you feel again. They remind you that you've still got warmth under all that armor. And it scares you, because feeling alive means risking getting hurt again. But what if they're not here to break you? What if they're here to build you differently? What if they're here to drag you out of your own shadow? You see, sometimes life uses people to deliver messages that words alone can't. That person you can't stop thinking about. They might be the lesson you didn't know you needed. Maybe they're here to show you what unconditional looks like. Or maybe they're here to remind you that love doesn't always stay. But it always leaves you stronger. You'll try to convince yourself it's nothing, that you can move on, forget, delete, block, erase. But energy doesn't lie. No matter how far you run, it follows. It's not about obsession, it's resonance. When two frequencies align, they don't need permission to connect. They just do. That's why no matter how much you try to silence it, the thought of them lingers. It's because they were meant to leave an imprint. Not all souls that enter your life are meant to stay forever. Some just walk in to wake you up, shake you, change you. You'll question it. You'll question yourself. You'll ask why you met them, why it felt so real, why it had to end, or why it can't start. But that's not your job to figure out. Your job is to feel it. To let it teach you something about yourself. Maybe it's teaching you patience, or timing. Or maybe it's showing you that not everything needs to be owned to be meaningful. Maybe it's teaching you that love can be sacred even when it's incomplete. The person who enters your life at the most inconvenient time might be the reason you finally start living with purpose. They push you to grow, to see your worth, to stop hiding behind excuses. They might hurt you. Yes, but pain can be a teacher too. Sometimes the lesson doesn't come wrapped in comfort. Sometimes it comes dressed in confusion, wearing the face of someone who feels like home and a storm at the same time. So you sit there, torn between holding on and letting go. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the lesson isn't about choosing either. Maybe it's about learning to appreciate what was given, even if it wasn't meant to last. Because not every divine connection ends in forever. Some are meant to transform you, not complete you. Some are meant to break your heart just enough to open it wider. Some are meant to show you that timing doesn't matter when something is meant. You can fight it, deny it, bury it, but truth always finds a way to resurface, and deep down, you'll always know. That person wasn't a random chapter in your story. They were the reason you started rewriting the whole book. Funny, isn't it? How one person can make you question everything you thought you understood about yourself. You think you've got your emotions under control, that you've built yourself into this fortress of focus and strength. You tell yourself you don't need anyone, that the mission, the goal, the grind, that's all that matters. Then one unexpected face walks in, and suddenly, the armor you spent years crafting starts to crack like it was made of glass. You tell yourself to ignore it, to push it away, but the more you resist, the louder it gets. That quiet voice inside whispering, maybe this isn't random. Maybe this person isn't just a distraction. They're the assignment. You start noticing the little things. The way their presence calms the noise in your head, or how their chaos strangely matches yours. They don't even have to say much. They just exist. And somehow, that's enough to stir something inside you. And it's confusing, because you've been trying so hard to stay detached, to protect your focus, to keep your mission clean and clear. But maybe the mission was never meant to be clean. Maybe it was meant to get messy, emotional, uncomfortable, because real purpose always is. Maybe this person is here to teach you something your goals never could. There's a pattern in life that no one wants to admit. The people who challenge you the most are the ones who reveal who you truly are. The ones who annoy you, confuse you, even hurt you. They pull out pieces of yourself you bury deep. You think they're breaking you, but they're actually introducing you to the parts you forgot existed. They're a mirror you didn't ask for, showing you the reflection you didn't want to see. And the crazy thing, you can't turn away. Something in you needs to look. Something in you recognizes that this pain, this pull, this connection, it's doing something to you that comfort never could. You can feel it, can't you? That tension between control and surrender. You want to stay logical, to keep everything in order, but life has a way of laughing at logic. It sends someone who operates entirely on feeling. Someone who doesn't follow your rules, who breaks your patterns just by being themselves. And now you're stuck in this paradox. Part of you wants to run. The other part wants to stay and see what happens if you don't. Because deep down, you know the truth. The greatest changes don't happen when you plan them. They happen when someone unexpected walks in and flips the switch you didn't even know was there. You start remembering what it's like to feel alive, to care again, to risk again. It's terrifying, isn't it? After being so used to numbness, to safety, to solitude, suddenly your heart is beating again, louder, heavier. You start questioning everything, your timing, your choices, your walls. And that's the beauty of it. That's the chaos that brings clarity. Because until something shakes you to your core, you don't really know who you are. You don't really know what matters. You don't really know what you're capable of feeling. Maybe this person didn't come to make you happy. Maybe they came to wake you up. To remind you that there's still a spark under all the layers of indifference. Maybe they're not meant to stay forever. Maybe their purpose was just to pull you out of autopilot. Maybe their mission was to teach you that connection isn't a weakness, that love, in its rawest form, is a mirror to your soul. Because when someone enters your life and ignites that fire, they don't just change how you feel. They change how you see the world. And even if you try to fight it, that change lingers. It creeps into your thoughts, your dreams, your decisions. You start to see things differently. You start realizing that life isn't about isolating yourself to stay safe. It's about finding the people who make the danger worth it. The ones who push you to become more than what you were yesterday. You start to understand that maybe this person isn't a detour from your mission. They are the mission. Because what's the point of success if your soul is still asleep? What's the point of achieving everything if you've forgotten how to feel? The real test isn't about how long they stay. It's about what they awaken in you. Sometimes the lesson wears the face of love, sometimes the face of loss. But either way, it's sacred. You'll look back and realize that this connection, this disruption, was never a coincidence. It was a divine reminder that purpose doesn't always come in peace. Sometimes it comes in the form of a person who turns your world upside down, so you can finally see it right side up. You ever notice how life tests you right when you think you've figured it all out? You've got your routines, your rules, your moral compass neatly calibrated. And then, bam, someone steps into your world, and everything you thought you understood starts trembling. Suddenly, your certainties feel fragile, your walls start to thin, and you're forced to ask yourself, why this person? Why now? There's something about them that doesn't fit the usual pattern. Something about their presence feels divinely inconvenient. They don't just walk in quietly, they shift the atmosphere. And no matter how hard you try, you can't ignore that pull. That strange sense that you've been assigned something that matters more than your comfort. It's never about convenience, is it? The real lessons never arrive wrapped in ease. They show up disguised as confusion, frustration, temptation, even pain. And this person, this mission, in human form, may be the hardest test you've faced yet. Because it's not about saving them or fixing them. It's about what you discover in yourself when you choose to care. It's about what it costs you to show up for someone who might not even realize they need you. Sometimes, you're sent to someone not to teach them something, but to prove to yourself that your heart still works. That despite everything you've lost, despite the scars and the cynicism, you're still capable of giving, still capable of believing that connection means something. You start to feel it, the tension between your purpose and your peace. You know helping them might drain you. You know caring might hurt. But you also know walking away would be worse. Because when something inside you whispers, don't leave them, it's not just sentiment. It's direction. It's that rare, divine push that says this moment, this person, is bigger than you. Maybe they're the mirror you need. The one that forces you to see who you've become. Maybe their chaos was sent to test your strength, or their pain was sent to call out your compassion. Either way, you can't shake that feeling that something about this connection has weight. Spiritual, emotional, fateful. And maybe that's what scares you. Because purpose always demands something in return. It doesn't come cheap. To truly help someone, you have to bleed a little. You have to risk misunderstanding, disappointment, rejection. You have to open doors you swore you'd never open again. And that's the catch. Most people want the glory of a mission without the mess. But real missions, they require sacrifice. Real missions break you open before they build you up. You can't save anyone without confronting your own shadows. You can't guide someone out of their darkness unless you've learned to make peace with yours. That's the real reason this connection was placed in your path, not for convenience, not for validation, but for transformation. You're being forced to operate from a deeper place, a more vulnerable place, a place where logic has no power. Because when you're assigned to someone, you don't get to rationalize it. You feel it. You know. It's that gut level knowing that doesn't fade no matter how much you try to talk yourself out of it. The mind says, this is too much. The soul says, this is where you're needed. That conflict between logic and calling, that's how you know it's real. And here's the thing about missions. They don't always make you feel heroic. Sometimes they make you feel small, weak, drained. But that's the paradox. Purpose doesn't always look powerful. Sometimes it looks like patience. Sometimes it looks like standing by someone even when it doesn't make sense. Sometimes it looks like choosing empathy when indifference would be easier. And it's in those quiet, exhausting, thankless moments that the real work happens. The kind of work no one sees, but heaven keeps score of. So you stay. You show up, even when it hurts, even when you don't understand why. Because deep down, something in you knows that obedience to that inner pull is the only way forward. You've been through enough cycles to know that ignoring it only leads to emptiness. So you let the discomfort guide you. You let it strip you of pride, of self-interest, of convenience. You let it make you human again. Because that's what missions like this do. They remind you what being human really means. To feel deeply. To carry someone else's burden for a moment. To love without expecting anything in return. And maybe, just maybe, that's the whole point. That this wasn't about success or control or outcomes. It was about surrender. About learning that true strength isn't in how hard you fight, but in how soft you're willing to become when the divine asks you to care. Maybe that's the test hidden in this connection. Whether you can listen to that voice inside when everything in you wants to run. Whether you can see beyond the inconvenience and realize that sometimes your purpose wears the face of a person who needs you. Not because you're their savior, but because you're the lesson they prayed for. You ever realize how the people you're meant to help often look like the ones who least deserve it? They're stubborn, broken, maybe even ungrateful. You try to extend your hand, and they bite it. You give them warmth. They respond with cold silence. But still, something inside you won't let you walk away. It's maddening, isn't it? Because logic screams, let them go. But something deeper whispers, not yet. That whisper, that stubborn tug, isn't weakness. It's purpose disguised as pain. It's a signal that there's something buried beneath their chaos that only you were meant to uncover. And maybe that's why you were chosen. Because you see what others miss. You feel what others ignore. Most people help when it's easy, when it makes them look good, when the gratitude is immediate, but the real assignments, the divine ones, they don't come with applause. They come with confusion. They come with weight. You don't get a thank you, you get a test. A test of patience, of compassion, of endurance. You're sent into someone's storm not to calm it, but to show them they can survive it. You don't even realize it sometimes. You just keep showing up. And every time you do, a piece of your pride burns away. You learn to care without control, to give without expecting, to love without needing a return. That's rare. That's uncomfortable. But that's the kind of love that changes destinies. You can't help someone without being affected yourself. You start to feel their pain, their frustration, their guilt. You begin to understand why they hide, why they push people away. Because once upon a time you did too. You recognize yourself in their mess. That's the part that hurts the most. The mirror they hold up without even knowing it. You look into their chaos and see your reflection. That's when you realize this isn't just about them. It's about you. It's about what kind of person you're becoming through this connection. You might think helping them is draining you. Maybe it is. But sometimes, what feels like losing energy is really shedding ego. You're being stripped of selfish motives, broken expectations that need to control outcomes. You start learning that some missions aren't meant to be successful in the way you imagine. Some are just meant to refine you, to soften your edges, to expand your empathy, to awaken your soul. You're not just helping them, they're shaping you. It's an exchange disguised as burden. You'll want to quit, of course. You'll get tired. You'll say, I've done enough. But that thought won't bring peace, because something in your spirit knows the task isn't finished. It's not about boundaries. It's about timing. And timing is sacred. You can't rush what's divine. When you're assigned to someone, leaving too early is like abandoning a story before its ending. You might think you're protecting yourself, but you're really walking away from transformation. And maybe they'll never thank you. Maybe they'll never understand what you gave up to stay. But the point isn't recognition. It's revelation. Every sleepless night, every frustrated sigh, every silent prayer you whisper for them. It's all part of the unseen work that reshapes your soul. You learn to listen more and judge less. You learn to see pain where others see rebellion. You learn that love isn't always soft. It's sometimes raw, messy, inconvenient. But it's real, and that's what makes it holy. The world doesn't teach that kind of love anymore. It teaches self-preservation, instant gratification, quick exits. But when you're called to someone, you don't get the luxury of shortcuts. You can't treat a divine connection like a casual encounter. There's purpose threaded through every word, every silence, every moment that makes you question your sanity. You think it's random, but it's not. The universe has a way of aligning souls who need each other. One to learn strength, the other to learn surrender. So maybe that's your mission here. Not to fix them, not to change them, but to stand beside them long enough for the light in you to spark something in them. You may not even notice when it happens. It might be in a single sentence, a gesture, a look. But something shifts. Because love, even the quiet kind, is contagious. It spreads without noise, without recognition. It just moves through the air, through the heart, through the unseen spaces between souls. And in the end, maybe you'll realize that being chosen for this person wasn't a burden. It was a privilege. To carry someone's name in your prayers. To hold faith for them when they've lost it. To see their potential when they only see their pain. You were sent not because you're perfect, but because you've been broken enough to understand. You were chosen because you know what it means to fall and still rise. Because you've lived through your own fire and came out knowing how to guide someone else through theirs. There's something strange about the air tonight, isn't there? It feels heavier, like it's carrying a warning no one wants to hear. Everyone's pretending everything's fine, laughing, scrolling, planning. But deep down, they feel it too. That quiet pressure building, that eerie stillness before the storm. You can smell fear before it arrives. It has a taste. Metallic, sharp, familiar. And when it finally comes, it won't knock. It'll just slip in, slow and smiling. Like it was invited. You've been told to prepare, but you didn't listen. Now the clock's ticking. And the horror isn't coming from outside. It's already here, waiting for you to notice. People don't really listen to warnings. They only believe in pain. You tell them something's coming, they laugh. You whisper, they scroll. You scream, they mute you. Until, of course, the sky starts to crack and the walls start to shake, and suddenly every ignored warning sounds like a prophecy. That's the thing about people. They don't wake up until the floor gives way beneath them. They crave danger, but they call it coincidence. They walk straight into the fire and act surprised when it burns. Warnings aren't supposed to comfort you. They're supposed to disturb you. They're the whispers in the dark that say, get ready, not relax. But no one wants to hear that. They want pretty lies wrapped in soft voices. They want to be told everything's fine, even when the walls are bleeding truth. Because truth doesn't sell comfort. It sells clarity, and clarity is terrifying. When you see the world for what it really is, you can't unsee it. You can't laugh like before, sleep like before, trust like before. That's why people pretend. They call it peace, but it's really blindness. Have you ever noticed how everyone mocks the messenger? The one who sees what's coming. They call him paranoid, dramatic, crazy. They roll their eyes, turn up the music, and drown out the truth. Because believing means acting, and acting means changing, and no one wants that. They'd rather cling to normality like it's a shield. They think if they ignore the signs, the storm will forget them. But storms don't forget. They just wait until you're least prepared. The signs are always there. Always. The tension in the air, the shift in people's eyes, the way time starts feeling slower. It's like the universe starts whispering warnings through everything around you. But people are too busy staring at screens to notice. They don't see how the patterns repeat, how the same mistakes circle back wearing different masks. They don't hear the ticking anymore. It's become background noise. They call it life. I call it countdown. And when the warning finally comes to life, they act like victims. No one told us. That's the lie they tell themselves to stay innocent. But deep down, they knew. They always know. You can feel danger long before you see it. That uneasiness in your chest. That chill that doesn't make sense. That's the universe tugging your sleeve, saying move. But instead of listening, you stay. Because staying is easy. Leaving requires strength. And most people would rather be comfortable than correct. Warnings don't always come wrapped in thunder. Sometimes they come in whispers, in instincts, in sudden urges to walk away, in dreams that feel too real. You brush them off, because logic tells you not to be foolish. But logic isn't always your friend. Logic builds cages out of reasons and locks the door with pride. Instinct, though, that's the voice of something older, something wiser. It's the part of you that remembers what danger feels like even when you can't see it, but you silence it with excuses. And that's when it happens. You miss your cue to prepare. People think horror strikes suddenly, but it doesn't. It builds. It grows in shadows while you pretend not to see. It watches your patterns, your habits, your ignorance. And then one day, it moves. Slowly, deliberately, like it's been waiting for you to stop paying attention. That's when you realize every ignored warning was a piece of the puzzle. Every strange feeling, every uneasy silence, it all connected. But by the time you understand, it's already too late. The horror doesn't need to chase you. It just needs you to keep pretending it's not real. The irony is, warnings don't come to scare you. They come to save you. But saving yourself requires humility, the kind that admits, I don't know everything. And people hate that. They'd rather risk chaos than admit vulnerability. They mock the very thing that's trying to help them. That's how blindness becomes a choice. Not ignorance. Denial. You can't warn someone who enjoys the illusion too much. So the question becomes, how many warnings do you need before you listen? How many close calls? How many sleepless nights? How many signs do you ignore before you realize this isn't coincidence? It's direction. The universe doesn't repeat itself for fun. It repeats because you weren't paying attention the first time. Every warning is a second chance disguised as fear. But if you keep treating fear like the enemy, you'll never hear the message hidden beneath it. People think the danger is in the event, but it's not. The real danger is in the delay. In that moment when you know something's wrong, but you convince yourself to wait. Tomorrow, you say, I'll handle it tomorrow. And by the time tomorrow comes, the horror's already made itself at home. It's sitting in your chair, drinking from your glass, smiling like it's been there forever. Because it has. You just refuse to see it. You ever notice how people always see the signs, but they never believe them? It's almost like they're allergic to reality. They sense something's off. The air feels heavier. The tension rises. Things stop making sense. But instead of preparing, they laugh it off. It's nothing, they say. Just my imagination. That's how it always starts. Not with the horror itself, but with the refusal to admit it's already here. Ignoring the signs is the first move in the dance of disaster. The world doesn't crumble in one day. It cracks slowly, in silence. First, it's just a shift in the energy. Someone you trust starts acting strange. Places that once felt safe begin to feel cold. You shrug it off because you're too used to routine, too used to pretending. You tell yourself everything's fine. You drown the unease in noise, in people, in meaningless distractions. But deep down, there's a small voice whispering that something's wrong. And every time you ignore it, it gets quieter. Until one day, it stops talking altogether. That's when you're in real danger. Not when the storm comes, but when you can't feel it anymore. People like comfort more than truth. They think ignorance is peace, but it's not. It's sedation. You can't protect yourself from what you refuse to see. And the worst part, the signs were never hiding. They were right there, written on faces, in dreams, in coincidences that weren't coincidences at all. But you didn't want to know. You thought knowing would make you paranoid, when really it would have made you prepared. You traded awareness for comfort, and comfort always collects a price. There's something strange about how humans treat warnings. They romanticize chaos, play with danger, flirt with the edge just to feel alive. But the second consequences arrive, they scream. Why didn't anyone tell me? They were told. They just didn't want to believe the story unless it ended in their favor. You see, people don't want truth. They want reassurance. They don't want signs. They want guarantees. But life doesn't deal in guarantees. It gives hints, patterns, glimpses, and expects you to pay attention. You can't blame fate for what you ignored out of convenience. When the signs came, you felt them. That strange dream that wouldn't leave your head. That sudden gut feeling telling you to wait, to stop, to leave. But you didn't listen, because you thought logic knew better. You wanted proof, something you could touch, measure, explain. But by the time proof arrives, it's too late. Proof always comes after the fall. The signs are mercy, proof is punishment. You ever watch how animals react before a storm? They move differently. The birds fly lower, the dogs grow restless, the silence thickens. They know before the thunder even starts. That's instinct. Something humans used to have before they drowned it in noise and distraction. Now you get 1,000 warnings every day and scroll past all of them, too numb to care. And when the storm finally hits, you act surprised. You call it sudden. But the truth is, it was building the whole time, right under your nose. Ignoring signs doesn't make danger disappear. It just makes you blind to the shape it's taking. And the moment you choose blindness, you give it power. You invite it closer. Let it move freely while you pretend everything's fine. That's the cruel part. People think ignorance protects them. It doesn't. It feeds the very thing they fear. When you close your eyes, the darkness doesn't vanish. It just feels safer because you can't see it. But it's still there, breathing right beside you. Every disaster, every downfall, every betrayal, they all leave a trail. Red flags don't appear out of nowhere. You see them. You just don't want to admit what they mean. Because once you acknowledge them, you have to make a choice. Stay or go, speak or stay silent, prepare or pretend. And most people would rather lie to themselves than face the discomfort of truth. That's why horror always wins. It doesn't need to be smart. It just needs you to keep ignoring it. The irony is, the people who ignore signs are always the ones who swear they'd never let that happen. They think awareness means fear, but it's the opposite. Awareness is armor. It doesn't make you paranoid. It makes you ready. But society teaches you to stay calm, stay polite, stay predictable. Don't overreact. They say, it's probably nothing. Those words have buried more people than bullets ever have. Probably nothing is the lullaby that lures the world to sleep before the chaos starts. You can only ignore the signs for so long before they start screaming. And when they do, it's not subtle. It's the sudden betrayal that leaves you speechless. It's the accident that came out of nowhere. It's the loss that no one could have predicted. But deep down, you saw it coming. You just didn't want to ruin the illusion of normal. That's the price of denial. It doesn't stop the horror. It just delays your awareness of it. So when the next warning appears, and it will, don't roll your eyes. Don't laugh it off. Don't call it coincidence. The universe doesn't repeat itself for entertainment. It's trying to tell you something. And if you keep ignoring it, you'll learn the hard way that every sign unheeded becomes a consequence earned. You ever realize how people only start praying when things start falling apart? When life's bleeding out in front of them, when their plans burn to ash, that's when they suddenly remember the sky exists. It's funny, isn't it? They'll mock faith, laugh at hope, but the moment their world tilts, they start whispering, begging, promising, like desperate gamblers trying to bribe fate for one more chance. But you can't bargain with what's already watching you. You can't cheat the test that was designed to expose you. The storm doesn't come to destroy you. It comes to reveal who you've always been underneath all that pretending. See, pain has a way of peeling back the mask. When life's easy, everyone's kind, everyone's patient, everyone's wise. But when the fire hits, that's when you see who's real. The calm ones start cracking, the loud ones go silent. The fake smiles fade, and what's left is truth. That's the gift of struggle. It strips away the noise, the image, the act. It forces you to meet yourself without filters, without titles, without excuses. And that meeting, it's terrifying, because you realize you've been lying to yourself far more than the world ever lied to you. People think being blessed means having no problems. That's the biggest joke of all. Blessings don't come wrapped in comfort. They come disguised as chaos. They look like endings, heartbreaks, betrayals. They taste bitter at first, but they're medicine, not poison. The pain isn't punishment. It's preparation. It's the universe rearranging your life to fit the version of you that you were always meant to become. But of course, most people never see it that way. They resist, they panic, they curse the timing. never realizing that the destruction they're crying about is actually construction in disguise. You ever wonder why the strongest people always have the darkest pasts? Because strength isn't built in peace. It's forged in struggle, molded in pain, sharpened in disappointment. Every scar, every loss, every sleepless night adds another layer of armor. The weak avoid pain, the strong absorb it. That's the difference. The weak run from the storm, the strong learn to dance in the rain. Not because they enjoy suffering, but because they understand it's the only way to grow. Growth doesn't ask for your permission. It demands your transformation. The thing is, everyone says they want change, but nobody wants to change. They want a new life, but not a new mindset. They want blessings, but not discipline. They want miracles, but without sacrifice. They want to skip the process and still get the prize. But the universe doesn't work like that. It doesn't hand you gold until you've proven you can handle the fire that forges it. You can't receive abundance with the same mindset that led you into scarcity. You can't hold greatness with hands still trembling from fear. So life tests you, shakes you, humbles you, until you're ready to carry what you've been praying for. And that's when most people give up. Right before it happens, they break down one step away from breakthrough. They curse the very storm that's trying to deliver them to the next level. They call it bad luck, bad timing, bad fate, when really it's divine alignment. You're not being buried, you're being planted, but the soil feels the same in both situations, doesn't it? Dark, cold, lonely. You can't tell if it's a grave or a beginning, so you panic. You dig yourself out before you bloom. That's why so many never see the light. They escape the process before it finishes its work. The most dangerous moment in any transformation isn't the beginning. It's the middle. That's where doubt lives. That's where you question everything. You're too far to turn back, but not close enough to see the results. It's a silent war between who you were and who you're becoming. And most people lose that battle, not because they're weak, but because they get tired. Tired of waiting, tired of trusting, tired of believing. But that's the test. The waiting room of greatness, the ones who survive it. They're not the smartest or the luckiest. They're just the ones who refuse to quit when it stops feeling good. You see, you can't fake faith when everything's falling apart. You can't pretend to trust when there's no plan left. That's when belief becomes real. Not when everything makes sense, but when it doesn't, and you still move. That's the kind of faith that shakes the universe, the kind that opens doors no logic could explain. Because at that point, it's not about religion or rituals. It's about surrender. About saying, I don't know how, but I know I'm not done. That's power. That's the moment the game shifts. Most people don't realize this, but every challenge carries a hidden reward. Every failure contains a seed of mastery. Every rejection redirects you to the right door, but you'll never see it if you're busy crying over the one that closed. Life doesn't take things from you to hurt you. It removes what you've outgrown. But humans love attachment more than freedom. They'd rather hold on to what's killing them than face the fear of the unknown. That's why they stay stuck. Not because they can't change, but because they won't let go. So, when everything starts collapsing, when the world goes quiet, and it feels like you're losing everything, remember, it's not the end. It's exposure. It's revelation. It's transformation in progress. The version of you that's being built in that chaos will look back one day and laugh, not because it was funny, but because it was necessary. You ever notice how people will pray for answers but run from the silence that follows? They want a voice from the sky, a miracle, a sign. But when it comes, they hesitate. They question it, overthink it, delay it. Like the truth is something they can negotiate with. The problem isn't that the answers don't come. It's that people aren't ready to obey when they do. They ask for direction, but they still want control. They say, "Show me the way." But deep down, they're hoping the path won't require losing their comfort, their pride, or their illusions. They want change, but they don't want to pay for it. The truth is, life doesn't wait for your readiness. When the message arrives, it's not asking for your approval. It's an order, not a suggestion. But oh, how people love to stall. They tell themselves, maybe later, maybe when I feel ready, maybe when the timing's better. But here's the thing, timing doesn't wait. The window closes. The opportunity fades. The moment you were born for starts to move without you. And you're left standing there, full of regret, whispering to yourself that you almost did something great. Almost. That's the word that kills more dreams than failure ever will. Fear. That's the real reason people delay. Not fear of the message, but fear of the change it demands. Because once you act on truth, there's no going back. You can't unhear it. You can't unsee it. You can't pretend you don't know anymore. And that's the problem. It forces you to move. It forces you to burn bridges that kept you trapped. It asks you to walk away from people, habits, and versions of yourself that were never meant to stay. The truth isn't gentle. It's sharp. It cuts through comfort like glass. But that's what makes it beautiful. It doesn't lie to make you feel safe. It destroys what's fake so you can finally breathe. The delay is deadly. Every time you ignore that voice inside, it gets quieter. Every time you hesitate, your courage decays a little more. You convince yourself it's not the right time. But deep down, it's not timing. It's fear dressed as logic. You wait for confirmation, for another sign. But the truth doesn't repeat itself. It speaks once, clearly, and then watches what you'll do. Because obedience isn't about understanding. It's about trust. It's about moving before it makes sense. It's about walking into darkness, knowing that if the message was real, the light will meet you halfway. People like to say they're waiting on destiny, but destiny doesn't wait. It demands response. Every delay costs something. A dream, a chance, a connection, a breakthrough. And life doesn't refund missed moments. You can't buy back what hesitation stole. The saddest part. Most people never realize they missed their calling until it's too late. They see someone else, living the life they were meant for, doing what they once dreamed of, and they call it luck. But it wasn't luck, it was obedience. Someone else moved when they paused. Someone else believed when they doubted. That's the only difference between the chosen and the forgotten. The willingness to act when the call comes. You can tell who listens immediately. They're the ones who don't need applause to keep moving. They don't wait for approval. They don't chase validation. They move because they know hesitation kills momentum. They act in silence while the world is still deciding whether to believe. By the time everyone else realizes what's happening, they're already miles ahead. That's the price of obedience. It looks crazy at first, but it makes perfect sense later. And by the time it does, it's too late for everyone else to catch up. There's something dangerous about delayed obedience. It feels innocent, like a small pause, a brief wait, but it's actually rebellion in disguise. Because when the truth speaks, silence isn't neutral, it's rejection. You can't say, "I'll think about it," to destiny. You either move or you lose. And every second you wait, fear grows stronger, logic gets louder, and faith gets weaker. That's how people miss miracles. They overthink what they were meant to obey. They try to make spiritual instructions fit into human reasoning. But the truth doesn't need to make sense. It just needs to be followed. You know what's ironic? The same people who hesitate when they hear truth are the ones who move instantly when fear speaks. The moment panic whispers, they run. The moment temptation calls, they listen. But when guidance shows up, they debate. Isn't that something? People respond faster to chaos than to calling. Faster to doubt than to destiny. It's not that they don't hear the message. It's that they've trained their hearts to respond to the wrong voice. That's why they stay stuck. Not because they can't move, but because they move for everything except what matters. There's a silence that comes before breakthrough. It's not empty. It's sacred. It's that quiet moment when you hear the call, when your heart races and everything in you knows. This is it. But then your mind interrupts. It starts calculating, questioning, delaying, and that's where most people lose it. Because faith is a moment thing. If you don't grab it while it's alive, it dies. The longer you wait, the weaker it becomes. And soon, all that's left is memory, a faint echo of what could have been. But the brave ones, the ones who really rise, they don't wait for perfect clarity. They move with conviction. They don't demand a map. They trust the message. They step even when their voice shakes, even when their heart pounds. Because they know that obedience doesn't need to make sense to work. It just needs to be complete. They understand that when truth calls, delay is disobedience in disguise. And by the time everyone else is still wondering, what if? They're already walking through doors others were too scared to knock on. People think obedience is about rules, about following instructions like a robot, about submission, about losing control. But that's not what it is at all. Obedience, real obedience, is chaos disguised as clarity. It's the moment when your soul hears something your mind can't yet understand. And instead of questioning it, you move. You don't know why. You don't know where it leads, but you move anyway. Because deep down, something whispers, no. And if you ignore it, you'll never get that whisper again. That's how it works. The universe doesn't beg. It speaks once, then watches what you do with the sound. Most people, they hear the same message, but they freeze. They analyze it. They dissect it. They want proof. They want to make sure it's safe. But obedience has nothing to do with safety. It's not about protecting yourself. It's about trusting something bigger than your fear. That's why most never see what they were meant to see. They think safety is success, but safety kills more